Hello and welcome to our series on helping people virtually operate with Office 365 and Microsoft Teams. Today we're going to specifically talk to, in particular, department managers, team leads, cross-functional team leads, generalizing that as managers, but how to hold your team virtually accountable in Microsoft 365. It's a different world that we're living in right now, and we're all adjusting and adapting. So hopefully these tips can help you and your team adopt and work better virtually. So without further ado, here's what we're going to cover today. My name is Nathan Austin, by the way. I'm the VP of Business Development at MyTech Partners, and my role is to help companies use technology better. So doing sessions like this is one of the favorite things I get to do. But the purpose of this session is very much how-to. It's to be a bit more prescriptive than interactive, because we're trying to cram a lot of content into 30 minutes. And afterwards, we will hold some Q&A. So we'll hold the Q&A mainly till the end, so that we can respect everyone's 30 minutes. And if you want to stick around for the Q&A, that's great. The session is being recorded, and we will release that as a link, as a follow-up email to everyone who registered or attended, who's looking to watch this or forward this on to other colleagues. Okay, so this session, it's about how-to. We're going to walk you through it, how to actually use the tools prescriptively as you go through potentially running a team meeting. And this could be a weekly department meeting. This could be a monthly cross-functional meeting. It could be a weekly cross-functional team meeting, all kinds of different options here. But the idea is that we oftentimes are trying to solve the same problems when we're communicating as a team and collaborating as a team. So we're going to be prescriptive on those methods, and of course they can be adapted to individual circumstances. Next, we are going to do a review of the session we did last week of the common department objectives and team meeting structure. So we built the structure out last week, and just really were prescriptive about building it out. And now I'm going to actually do a quick review of that before we go on to actually then preparing and operating your weekly department meeting or your weekly team meeting, whatever that looks like. At the end, we're going to have some Q&A and recommended next actions for you to take some steps as far as driving adoption of these tools personally and across your team and or organization. All right. So real quick about MyTech, we only work with small and medium businesses in the geographies we serve, which is the Twin Cities and the Denver metropolitan areas. We have learned over the years we have a proven IT strategy that we know can achieve results, that's similar results for every organization. Our goal, similar to this session that we're doing today, is that, look, you've got a lot of other challenges facing from an HR, financial, sales, marketing, all the other challenges that you faced as a business. Pandemics, and our goal is to help at least remove some of those IT challenges, or remove the IT challenges. You've got plenty of other stuff to work with. So these are the sessions as an example of what we're trying to do, and that's consistent with our goal that we want to make IT easy for you. If we can be prescriptive and help you use this technology, we believe that our clients can achieve 4 times more value and productivity from their IT investments. And so this is one of the ways in which we attempt to do that. So enough about us. Just want to make sure you know we're not a training company, but this is what we do to help our clients. Okay, so we're going to hit a real quick review of the virtual meeting structure that we covered last week. So these are the 6 topics we covered last week. As a quick review, we'll go through, I showed how to set up the audio collaboration, how to set up a place for centralized issue and discussions, where you can share and collaborate on team documents, weekly meeting agenda and minutes and notes, as well as capturing action items and to-dos, and as well as kind of a bonus one is rating the meeting and how do you work on continual improvement across your team. So this is the premise that we have found by doing these sessions over the last couple of years, where these are the common issues that come up when across different organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of the industry that they're in, the type of whether it's a cross-functional group or a very remote group or an in-office group, it's pretty incredible how we all struggle with similar challenges. So we built out this structure. There's a whole session on that's recorded and online right now. But just to kind of know, we're going to use this structure, and I'm going to walk you through how to actually execute these different pieces, so you see what it's looked like to practically walk through a meeting agenda. All right. So I'm not going, and I'll show a little bit more when we actually open up into Teams on these different variables, just as a refresher. But in general, we're going to use this structure. Okay. Let's get into it. So I try and keep the introduction to a minimum since we only have 30 minutes here. So now I'm going to walk you through what do you need to do if you're the department leader, if you're the department head, or you're the person responsible for running this team meeting. What are the things you should be thinking about and doing, as well as then executing your weekly team meeting or department meeting. So summary here, I will flip back to this screen after I walk through it, but I'm going to use this as a guide to walk through. Use this as a guide to walk through the session today as we walk through it. So first of all, I'll walk through some of the things to be prepared. You know, when you first get into the meeting, again, I used to go physically into the conference room. Well, you don't have to do that, as many of us are working remotely right now. But I usually try and take a little bit of extra time up front until I feel comfortable. And the tip on that one is that you will feel more comfortable. It will take less time as you do it more frequently. Then getting into the meeting specifics. What are the unique things that need to happen in this meeting? Are there unique agenda items, unique topics that need to be discussed that you want to add to the list? Just make sure you do that and spend a little time ahead of time. I'll also show that there's a pro tip on this one is, as you're navigating back and forth between different screens and different applications to track all these different variables, you can open them up in a browser. I'll show you how to do that, but that has helped me keep the meeting notes present, as well as flipping back and forth between different items that we may want to cover in a team meeting. So that's a tip there. Once you get the meeting started, I do recommend opening the meeting, the quote unquote virtual meeting, a little early. And a couple things that I recommend is have other team members lead the meeting, or at least navigate through the meeting. You don't have to do that every time, but I definitely encourage getting your team used to that, because if they're not actually using it themselves, they're not going to become as familiar with it and be as comfortable with it, so they'll start using the tools to their advantage. Secondly, a pro tip on this one is encourage your team to update action items or issues outside of the meeting. You don't need to spend precious meeting time doing those things. So get your team comfortable with it, show them how to use it, hit it on a weekly basis, and if they update that on a regular basis or on a in-between meetings, you're adding time back into your valuable meeting time. Finally, wrap up. Review the action items with the team, cascade messages that need to be cascaded, and then rate the meeting for improvement, so you can capture opportunities for improvement. The other thing that I recommend doing is making sure you don't schedule yourself back to back. I don't always do a great job of this, candidly, but schedule yourself, or at least allow yourself a little flex time immediately afterwards, because if there's an action item assigned to you, you can just schedule it and then immediately put it on your schedule at some point between when the action item was created and when it's due. Just some tips on how to successfully execute the standard. So I'm going to walk through all of this, and I'll go through that a little bit slower as I've been trying to hit through some of the high level stuff, because I know you're here to see Teams and O365 and not here to see more PowerPoint presentation slides. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to Teams. Sorry, Stephanie, as I've got your video cam up there. So okay, so I'm going to go and start into general. What I'm going to do, actually, this is the Teams, the Teams desktop application. We're in the operations team general. I'm going to actually flip for the purposes of this demonstration, because we are recording this in Teams right now. If I try and start another meeting here, I'll actually put this one on hold. So I'm not going to do that, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to the browser. So down here, this is the new Microsoft, I think I don't know if they call it Chromium, but it's their new browser that they're using. If you notice, it looks very similar. If I go to the beginning, you see it looks very similar to the Teams application, but it is slightly different in the browser. But when you're in the new Microsoft browser, you can see kind of the logo here. It actually works nearly identically to the Teams application. So, all right. So to start, when you get in, one of the things that I recommend doing as you're getting prepared is I'll go over to the meeting agenda and notes tab. So again, if you recall, this is a wiki, which again, if you click on this and add tab, just to show you an example, this is I'm using a wiki for this function for the meeting notes and agenda. So the way I've set this up is I have the standing meeting agenda at the top of the page. So what I'll go in and do is that if you hover down, notice you can say add a new section here. So I'm going to add a new section. I'm going to call this the March 31st, 2020 weekly meeting. All right. And then I literally just copy and paste. I copy and paste the standing meeting agenda into the meeting notes. So now what I've done is that when I start the meeting, I'll just literally click here and start taking notes in this session. So instead of having to have someone take notes in a Word document or in an email or write up notes afterwards and send an email afterwards, I keep the meeting notes here. One of the things that I also like, if you look at the little, as we call it, the hamburger icon here in the upper left-hand corner, one of the things I like about the wiki is you'll notice there'll be 3 sections. By using the wiki, it automatically starts creating a historical navigation. If I want to click on this meeting, and you'll see historical meeting notes going down the page. So all you need to do, for example, I'll add a new section real quick so you also see what it does in real time. Once I clicked on that, it automatically adds this untitled section. So I'm actually going to delete that because it's not something that I wanted to add, but for purpose of illustration. So I'll get this set up. Again, this is what I'll do before I come into the meeting, get this ready to go. So I've already got that, so I'm not starting the meeting and then, kind of getting this ready to go. So I've already got my meeting notes ready. And what I would also do is say, is there anything in particular in here that I need to talk about? So for instance, something that came up since last week's meeting is the stay-at-home order, right? Discussion, right? Or actions, right? What are we doing? So those different things that you might have to deal with that might be specific to this meeting that you might not want to add into the regular meeting agenda. The idea here is to have a standing meeting agenda and timelines, so you're not creating that, and it helps keep people on track. But then down here, you might have specific messages that you want to make sure that are noted as you go through your agenda. So that's spend a little extra time as you're thinking about that, have that ahead of time. And again, I use the wiki tab. So I'm going to close the hamburger icon. We like to use food acronyms. And these are the breadcrumbs, by the way, for the record, in case. All right, the other thing that I'll do is because I like to keep the meeting screen front and center as I'm going through the meeting, and I don't want to have to switch back and forth. So as I move over to action items, I'll illustrate the point. I clicked on action items. It resolves pretty quickly. However, if I'm looking at an action item and I want to go back to the meeting agenda, it does take a split-second difference. So one of the things that Teams has done a really good job of is that I'll open this up in the browser. As I mentioned, that was a pro tip. If I go back to the slide, what I meant by the pro tip or open action items and issues list in browser. So I've already got the team structure set up so that, oops, I need to go to the browser version. So I've already got the team structure set up, and this is actually Planner, by the way, the part of the review. This is a Planner plan. By clicking on that, and this little icon over here, it says go to website. Because you can integrate a lot of different tools in the different tabs, but once you're on a tab, if there's a website associated with it, like there is here, a browser version of Planner, you can just really quickly go here and say, I'm going to go to website. So what it's going to do is it's automatically open up the Planner action items in the browser. All right, so I've got that open. Again, that's prepped. Now going to the issues and discussion list, same thing, that's resolving. This is basically pulling a list out of SharePoint. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to click on go to website, and that's actually going to open up the issues list in the browser as well. So this way, when I'm operating or getting ready for my meeting, I've got my meeting notes ready to go. I've got my action items and to-do list, but I've already got those in separate browsers. It's a lot easier to navigate back and forth between these versus the tabs in Teams when you're in the midst of running the department meeting. So that's what I would do to prep. Just get this stuff ready. You might also have, in case some of you might have a dashboard that you have that could be a link up here. You could be using Power BI as a dashboard. You could be using some other third-party dashboarding tool. We use both in our team meetings, and so I actually will do the same thing as I will link to the. I will have a tab up here at the top that'll be a link to our dashboard, and I will do the same thing as I'll open it up in a browser to be able to view. So that might be one of the these metrics and goals section, for example. If you have that where it's displaying some sort of gauge or again, digital dashboard display. That's something you might be able to integrate, or you could just use something as simple as an Excel spreadsheet, or just have people bring their own information. So it depends on how you as an organization are running that, but that's definitely one of the other tabs I've oftentimes seen is adding some sort of a dashboard or a metric gauge there. Okay, so now I basically have come in a little early, I've prepped for the meeting, I've got this stuff ready to go, and I'm going to start the meeting. All right, so going back to the general screen, so there's a couple ways in which you might be able to do this that I talked about last time, is that you could go to your calendar, and if you notice, I actually already have a meeting here, so you could schedule a meeting through your calendar. You could also at the bottom here, it's a little bit of a misnomer because the icon down here, and hopefully it's okay to see, it's probably small on your screens. It looks like a little kind of video camera. And if you hover over it, it says meet now, but it doesn't actually force you to meet now because I can add a subject. So I can say weekly, I'll say March 31st, weekly team meeting. Probably, I don't know if I need to capitalize that, but he wants me to. I can say meet now. The other thing I could do, I'm going to copy this so I don't have to type it again, is I could say schedule a meeting. So if I schedule the meeting right here, notice it defaults to the operations team general channel as far as its location where it's going to be held. And it's automatically going to get sent out to everyone on this team. So if I scheduled this for, later today, 2 p.m. today to 3 o'clock today, it's actually gonna, and I click save, notice it automatically filled in my subject line here. It's gonna schedule that out. I actually don't personally do it this way because my team already knows that we meet. If I was in the operations team, they already know that we're going to meet in the general channel, so I don't actually schedule the meeting. But what I'll end up doing though is I will just do a meet now. And I'll just start the meeting like this. All right, so now I'm going to disable the mic and the camera, so I don't want duplication on that. I don't know how that's going to play out with this team meeting. So I've started the meeting, and then what I would also do is I'll click on, this is where I can share, because especially right now we're all virtual, and I end up sharing my desktop. All right, click on that and hit share. So we're going to be sharing my desktop. Okay. And it's really easy, and you can hit stop sharing right here. This also applies, by the way, right now, many of us are working virtually, and so this is a necessity to share your screen if you're going to be sharing and collaborating on this. But before we were all kind of working remotely, very often we were meeting in a conference room, so I wouldn't necessarily share my screen. Which is okay. However, I'm sure you've all had folks on your team that have run late, have had to stay home with maybe a sick child, but they were still planning on working. They just had to work from home. Maybe they're in transit because they came from another meeting and they needed to join virtually. Well, this is one of the ways in which you can still share screens in that regard to make sure that you are allowing people to participate virtually, even if most of you are physically in the office, which eventually we'll get back to at some point. The other thing is that there's more actions here that I want to call out. These are the breadcrumbs. Notice we talked about the hamburger icons previously. Well, under the breadcrumbs, when you click this, there's different feature sets that are available to you. So I could start recording. So for instance, maybe I don't often record weekly department meetings, but I will sometimes record if I know if there's important information that's going to be presented and someone's going to miss it, or if it's a team training, like we're actually going through some team training, I'll record it. Even if everyone's in attendance, I'll still record it so people can go back and watch it, not unlike this session that we're recording. I can enter full screen. That allows it to go full screen, kind of simple. And one of the things that you will also notice that is not showing up here at the moment because Microsoft turned it off because of the peak volume that's going on, is there's also a transcription where you can do live captioning or closed captioning here. So it's kind of cool that Microsoft has that feature. It's been disabled because of the bandwidth that it requires in the short term as we're going through this, but know that that's where you can find some of these different features. Again, record, enter full screen. You can also turn off incoming video if, for instance, you're on a low bandwidth connection. That might be an easier way for you to manage that. Okay. So let's see here as we move along. So now we've got it, the screen shared, we've got the meeting started and the screen shared. So I'm going to go back to the Teams channel. One of the things that you will see is that if I'm gonna navigate to a different team, I'm gonna navigate to the sales team, for instance, just to illustrate a point, is that if I'm a member of the operations team, at a glance, I'll see that there is a meeting scheduled. There's a meeting happening right now, because it gives me a little visual indicator that there's actual meeting happening. So all I need to do is click on that channel, and if I'm a member of this team, I will see this, and I just need to click join. So anybody on your team, so if you're the one that started the meeting, or maybe someone else on your team started the meeting, when you click, all you need to do is click join, and they're now into the meeting. All right, so and then as I mentioned, I'll start the meeting and we'll go through, hey, personal professional bests, any wins or losses, any lessons learned from last week, and just take a few minutes to share. I find this time, sometimes it goes beyond 10 minutes depending on the topics of discussion, but I have found that by asking about wins and losses and lessons learned and personal professional bests, it definitely helps like bring the team together, and there's a lot of learning and sharing that happens in that time. So as a facilitator of the meeting, that's use that as your gauge, right, as far as value or not. Again, any escalations, like are there any client issues or vendor issues or anything like that we want to create awareness to the team, capture those notes here, right? Put notes here. Again, going through your metrics and goals, and from an action item perspective, then that's when I switch over to the other browser, right? So I'll go over here to action items, and we'll say, all right, here we've got these things. These aren't due yet; they're due on the 2nd, but I can follow up and basically make sure that we can check in on the to-dos and whether or not they've been done. One of the things I'll show you a little hint. If you look at, I'll move to the Teams window. I'm going to click on the action items here just for illustration. Notice that when I click on the action items or the planner tab in Teams, my tab on the left side is the other teams column, but when I'm in the full planner browser, I've got different options over here as far as the different plans that might be available to me, as well as my tasks. That's a little foreshadowing for the next session that we're running on Thursday relative to managing your digital to-dos. Because imagine if you're a member of one or more teams and you're trying to manage your tasks across different plans, your tasks that might be in your email, your tasks that could be personal to-dos. How do you manage that? It's really hard to do, but there are some tips and tricks that we're going to cover on Thursday on the next session that will allow you, that'll show you that. But I'm not going to go into that today because we don't have enough time. But by keeping action items, it's really easy. So if you have a discussion, it may be that you say, all right, well, what's to do? Update new events. That's going to be done. I'll just make it by next week. So update new events. I'm going to assign that to Stephanie. All right, great. And I'm going to add that task, and then add events for the next couple of weeks. I recommend this from a standpoint of how many times do you have a title up here and then you get to this action item and you don't remember what it really meant. So it allows you to have some additional notes here, as well as maybe there's some subsets to it. Collaborate on description, post to website, send invitation, send email to guests. Right, so that could be an example of things that are going on. And when you, either one of these, you could say show on card, and I'll look over, as you watch over here, as I click on that, I'm going to click on show on card. And these items showed up at a glance now over on this task. So I'm going to close that out. So now Stephanie knows that she's got this item due next Tuesday, and these are the sub items that she needs to complete by next Tuesday. And not only does Stephanie know that, but the entire team has visibility to it. So one of the challenges about holding and creating accountability across a team, especially when it's virtual, is how do you make sure that everyone has visibility to it? Now, if you just have it on a notepad, that's kind of hard. So this is basically a team digital notepad to be able to keep track of tasks for different team members to be able to see, again, I've got a task assigned to me, and so does Gerald. So now I'll give you a little quick illustration. I've got these 2 tasks assigned to me. So I'm going to go over to my tasks really quick. And notice, when I click on my tasks, the only thing that it shows are tasks that are assigned to me. So that's one of the ways in which individual members can look at that. So if they have multiple plans that they might have tasks assigned to them, by clicking on my tasks in the browser, you actually could see tasks that are only assigned to them. I wouldn't be doing that in a team meeting, but for the purpose, I wanted to illustrate that as a little bit of a foreshadow. So we'll illustrate that more on Thursday, the next session. So anyway, so now we've gone through action items. They're either done or not done. And then going to, if I go back to, forgive me, if I go back to, normally wouldn't keep, I want to be able to flip back to the meeting notes like this. So we covered action items, hitting on the cascading messages. Now I want to talk about other issues and things that we can discuss. Okay, so this is an area, so notice one of the things that I like to illustrate is that in Teams, we're in the Teams operations team, right? The operations team here, and that creates a corresponding operations team site. So in that site, when you're in that site, you can create a different lists. So I went ahead and created a list. I'll give you a quick illustration how you can do that as a refresher. So when you go to the home of the operations team site, you can actually click on new, and you can choose a different document library, another page, etc. But if you click on list, that's how you create this. So I've created this list here, this issues and discussion list, and I've customized some of these columns so I can filter by, statuses of open or complete. So right now what I would do if I was running this meeting is I would filter by open items. I don't want to necessarily go back over complete items. So I'll go to the filter screen up here, filter tab, this little filter icon, and I'm going to filter by, I want to see only open items. Great. So now I only see, and I'll close that. And now I see only open items. So because I only see one item here, I might choose to add others, but this is also where I would encourage your team to go and add issues throughout the week. That way you don't come to this section of your meeting and say, hey, anyone have any issues you want to talk about? And then people scratch their heads and they say, oh gosh, there was that one thing, I meant to bring it up, I wanted to talk about it. It'll come to me. Right? People will forget. So in the moment, one of the things you're doing by creating this structure and by building this discipline into your team meeting is that you're creating the opportunity for people to, they're in their Teams channel all the time. They can just really quickly and easily click on this link right here that everyone on your team will have access to, and they can add a new item to that list. Right? And so when I'll illustrate it here because it'll populate to the other one. So new item to discuss. This is submitted by myself. Submitted today. Status is going to be open. Longer description of what I would like to discuss. All right. Now there's no conclusion yet, so I'm just going to save that. Now that should be first demos. Hopefully that's saving. There it goes. It's added. I'm going to go back to the issues list here. I'm gonna quick refresh, and now that new item to discuss just popped up here too. So the point is that it syncs very quickly, and that people can either go to the web page, but I use the web page to do it. And then now that we've got these issues we're going to discuss, we agree we're going to discuss this one. I'll oftentimes click on this quick edit right up here, and that way it allows me to go into the issues list. And I can choose to change the quick, like for instance, I want to say, oh, we're gonna finish this one. The longer description, we don't need that. The conclusion of this is we were able to find stock. Good to go. All right, now I'm going to close that. I'm going to exit the quick edit. Now what that should do is because the filter of open statuses comes on, now I only see the open one. And if I want, I could reverse that. I could say, hey, I want to look at completed items just to make sure it's not lost from our view. You can still view and review the results of those conclusions. So this is typically how I'm walking through the team meetings, is I'm really starting with, I try and keep the meeting agenda present. I'm not flipping back and forth here. I'm flipping back and forth in the browser, reviewing action items, having issues, discussing issue lists, and then in the end, I want to rate the meeting. So that's some of the quick ways to navigate that. What I will do at this point, though, now that we're closing out the meeting and we reviewed some of the action items and issues, is I will go up here and say, all right, let's rate the department meeting. All right, Stephanie, how would you rate the meeting? Stephanie gives it a 9. Gerald gives it a 10. He loved it. I'm going to give it an 8. And then I can ask, well, what could we have done better in this meeting? We started a little late, or we weren't prepared. Now, this is an optional piece. However, I do this because it gives you the opportunity to ask your team, you know, if they didn't like it or if they felt something we could improve, that they give them an opportunity to comment on that. Because I can tell you there's been things that my team has brought to my attention that I as a facilitator wasn't aware of, or I feel like I didn't do as good of a job, but I wasn't aware of that. So they were able to use this opportunity to tell me, and so I could take that feedback to heart. All right, so that's roughly the conclusion. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back to some recommended action items here, right? Always be clear on the problems, the key problems you're trying to solve. The clearer you can be on that, the easier it is to identify how these things can help you, or how the different ways you can solve these problems will work better for you. I do recommend taking a few minutes right now. And by the way, as I pause, put some Q&A in the panel on the side, because we're going to go to that next. But right now, if you can, take a moment, or before you kind of get onto something else in your world, write down 1 to 5 takeaways that you can execute now. That you not necessarily can execute now, but that you want to eventually execute. So write them down now so you don't forget them, but keep them on your list so you can move forward with them. See if in the next 24 to 48 hours you can take some baby steps, start using some of these pieces, and write down some questions that might come out of it, because we have future sessions that we're going to be able to help you with. And then join us in those future sessions where we're going to take some next steps around managing your digital to-dos in a virtual world, as well as some open forum questions coming up later this week. So I want to thank you all very much for attending. The recording will be available afterwards, and I really want to open it up for questions so we can get more specific into any details that we might be able to help you with. So Stephanie, any questions that have come through the Q&A panel?
Yeah, can you show, I don't know if you'll be able to demonstrate, but how do you take notes on the agenda and see team members at the same time? This individual is saying they don't use notes because it feels like we're ignoring the members that are attending.
I see. So for instance, like it might be seeing the video. So like if for instance, if I clicked on the video here, yeah, that might be, that's one of the negatives, I guess, that could come out of it, is that if you're just trying to do video and see people's faces, that's one of the challenges, that if you're sharing your screen and trying to take notes, one of the things that you might be able to do if you're the one presenting to solve that problem though, and this goes back to one of the notes that I would mentioned. I'm going to go back to, forgive me, I'm going to go back to this slide. And I'll just click that here. Darn it, sorry. The have other team members lead or navigate. That's actually one of the ways I would encourage you to solve that problem, because what you could do is you could have, if you're the primary person sharing or leading the team and you want to have people's the video present, is you could have that, but have someone else on the team take notes, because this is available to anyone. So you could designate someone to take notes, and those notes would actually show up for everyone. So that might be one of the ways that you could do it. That's actually one of the ways I encourage, just to spread that duty out across your team, so that everyone gets the experience of doing it, the experience of navigating through the different sections, because that it helps them drive comfort and familiarity, and ultimately drive adoption in other areas of the organization. So I don't know if I fully answered that question. I think that's what was the question, but otherwise, if the video screen would just be up here and it would only show one person, and if you're showing your meeting notes, or if you're showing some of these different browser tabs, yeah, you're not able to see people's faces at the same time. That's just current functionality of Teams.
Awesome, thank you. Another question here relates to when you were showing the action items in Planner. Yeah. If you have a repeatable process, can you create a template and copy the tasks, subtasks as a group?
That's a great question. So there's some things you can do so I moved to the Planner. Planner is one of the applications that has a mobile app, but it does not, and it exists in the browser, but it does not have a desktop app for now. Maybe it will, I'm not sure if it will or not. But so I moved to the browser because you will have a little bit more full functionality, because versus in Teams, because this menu bar over here on the side doesn't exist in Teams. Not that you couldn't do it, we're about to show you in Teams, but if I'm doing something specific in Planner, I like to go to the Planner browser tab. Okay, so there's a couple different ways. So if you have a template, so for instance, let's say this was our template. One of the things that we could do in the breadcrumbs, that's always a hint, by the way, if you're looking for something that Microsoft might be able to do, or any O365 tool might be able to do, the hint is in the breadcrumbs. That's oftentimes where the answer to your question will lie. So I'm going to click on the breadcrumbs up here because in this instance, I believe the question might be, if this was my template, what I'm showing right here, for example, if this was my template, can I just copy this template? So up here, one of the things you'll notice is there's an opportunity to copy the plan. So this is where you can copy the plan and as a template. The other thing you might be able to do is maybe you don't want to copy the whole plan in the breadcrumbs here. You could also just copy the task. So you can, there's a couple different places you can do it depending on, maybe not all this is your template, maybe these two are your template, so you just want to copy this task and then copy this task. It's perfectly able to do that. I've had people ask this question in the past where I have an annual event or a quarterly event that I run, and there's the same kind of reverse engineering of tasks that we need to do. So can we just build a template instead of having to recreate every time? And that's a great example of anything that's kind of a recurring tasks, is being able to just copy a plan that way. I'll also give a little foreshadowing here too. One of the things you'll notice, add plan to Outlook calendar. There's ways to either add a plan to the Outlook calendar, and I'll show you another hint that we'll talk about on Thursday. If you click on my tasks, I can also add my tasks to Outlook calendar. So I can do it at the plan level individually, or I can do it at the task level as well. So, but that wasn't the question you asked, but I thought I'd illustrate that since we were also talking about the breadcrumbs.
And that's all the questions I have for right now.
All right, excellent. The only other thing that I wanted to show as an illustration, in case anyone might be watching, is that is going to office.com and you log in, and that's going to give you access to everything you need. One of the things that I haven't illustrated, but I want to illustrate something, is forms. Is the form that I said for rate the department meeting is a group form. So I'm going to click on that, and one of the things that I like to quick show, and we'll do this in one of the future sessions as well, but this allows you to edit the form. So for instance, if I wanted to copy this, I want to add an additional person, another team member, so I can do that, right? So that's one of the things I can do, quickly adds another team member. The other thing I like to show is, again, up here in the breadcrumbs, is that you can choose some settings here that allow you to, that keeps it open, because you can keep the form open to be able to accept responses. And then one of the things I like to do here, because I have a couple members of my team in particular that are like, well, I'm always first. I don't want to be the one first to ask the question. So you can quickly say shuffle questions, but then lock questions. So I actually just changed this, so I need to lock question 5. So I shuffled the questions, so that way every time I click on this, it'll actually put these questions in a different order, in a random order, but it's going to lock question 5 because I always that one to come last. And then I was able to customize the thank you message. So a couple simple things. If you want to create forms, you don't have to use it for just rating the meeting. It could be for any kind of survey that you're trying to run across your organization, but creating a form is really easy. And when you go into the breadcrumbs and click on settings, it's where you can also see some different options as far as how you want to execute that form. So with that said, since there are no other questions, unless any other questions came up in the meantime.
Yep. One more popped up.
All right.
What's the difference between adding a plan to Outlook and adding tasks to Outlook?
Oh, great question. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the browser here real quick and click on the plans here. So the difference is not in whether or not the tasks get added to your calendar. It's whether or not you want this plan, which has to-dos from Stephanie, to-dos from Nate, and to-dos from Gerald added to my calendar. So maybe I want to do that. In fact, I'll illustrate that really quick because I think that's a great way. And then versus when you go into my tasks, this is really more about me as an individual trying to manage my to-dos versus if I'm trying to manage the team's to-dos across my calendar, right? That's really the key difference between if I want to copy this to my calendar versus copy my tasks. And what it'll do I'm going to actually, there's a couple steps. You have to click add to my calendar, hit publish, hit add to Outlook, and a couple steps to go through here. I'm going to say, yep, I'm going to import that. I think that's all I need to do. Sorry, let me hide that. Close that. So I believe when I go to, if this is my calendar, which I want to, this is my week, and I've also got my planner. So I'm going to unclick this, and you'll see that this is what got added to my calendar. So I'm going to unclick this, and those to-dos that are scheduled for Thursday go away. And I click this back again, and it goes into. I'm going to try and do this so I can go to my week. Work week. There we go. So that way, so I can click on that, unclick those. So my to-dos are gone. My planner items. So now I can see those to-dos are back. So that's really if you want to have it overlay over your calendar, and then you can click into any of these, and you could open this task in your planner. It gives you links to be able to do it. It also will send you email reminders that you have tasks to do, or you have late tasks. So basically it gives you an overlay into your calendar. So you could either do this as a, notice this is specifically the action items one, whereas if I actually link, I'm going to click here. If I did on my tasks, if I click on my tasks and did that, it would just give me planner tasks. So I'm going to save that though, because I'm going to show that on Thursday, as far as how that connects with other variables. So good question, and thank you for asking.
That's
all right.
it.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay. Well, I'll go back here. Thank you very much for attending. We appreciate your time. Stay safe and healthy, everybody. And we hope this is helpful in keeping your team connected and productive, and still being able to serve your mission through these trying times. So thanks a lot and have a great day.